if you never have a bad workout and you never have a bad race, then you're not doing it enough. And
Hmm.
therefore you're not going to be your best. Like the lessons that we learn in getting better comes from experience and exposure. And you have to get out and you have to do things. You have to do them repetitively to do them. And you also have to do sometimes the same things over and over and over again to get the most out of it. Like, right now it's you got to find the wins. Because if you're looking for a race to be your win and you're looking for a race to validate things or to show you that your expectations have been met, that you are who you thought you were, like you don't know. You have no control of that. But what you do have control of is waking up tomorrow or getting on your bike later today or going out for a run or doing whatever you need to do to find that little win and then think, all right, I won this today or I learned this today. Learning is always a win if you choose to apply it later on and you don't just ignore it or don't learn from it. Always learn, always apply things. And if you can do that, then I promise you, at the end of this, whatever it is, you're going to come out a better athlete.
There we go. How's it going?
Hey, man, good to talk to you. Welcome aboard, Pushing Iron Podcast. What are we, 358?
358. Mike and Robbie
358.
therapy. 358.
Yes,
Take
seriously. And if we hadn't started a podcast already, we'd be starting one right about now. But hey, we appreciate you tuning in the midst of all things crazy. Today is March 23rd, 2020. For those of you that are probably listening to this at a later date, yeah, lots going on. We're glad to be here, and we appreciate you tuning in. We cover all things triathlon. We cover all things life, how they intersect, how they complement each other, and sometimes how they are just flat out hard to help to navigate simultaneously. As I think a lot of people are finding at the moment, as we have oftentimes discussed. Definitely didn't predict, but oftentimes discuss how we can't control anything, and how life will throw its challenges and its obstacles at us in training and in racing. And the best we can do is just that. It's do our best. Wake up every day, put forth the effort we can, give ourselves a break, and wake up the next day and do it again. So we know a lot of you are going through quite a bit right now, so we'll try to make this podcast well, not the most joyous part of your day, because that would be terrible, because we're not that great. But we hope to at least
Yeah.
be we hope to at least be a brighter light, and give you some humor and some good info, and hopefully help nudge you gently along in your journey, which is triathlon. And that's what we do. I'm Robbie. That's Mike. Been doing this for what, 3 years? 358 podcasts. Dive back in the archives, listen up, especially if you're just working at home and not doing much. Plug it in, kick back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Let's
It's
do it.
yeah, man, it's fragile. My buddy said it the best. He goes, "Man, I just can't believe how fragile everything is." He owns like these cell phones or mobile stores in town. He had to
Hmm.
shut down 40 stores.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean in the region, I guess. So he we were talking the other day about, he goes, I just can't believe how fragile everything is. He had to lay off all these people and cut salaries and just try and make it all work. And it's just been weird. I am, going about my day to day, just trying to have little wins, small wins, trying to stay on point and in the moment with all this stuff because it's just so unknown and what's going on, who knows? I have no idea what's going on out there, but
I really hope through all this that everyone begins. I was thinking about this earlier. I was kind of digging through a little bit of Training Peaks this morning and looking at races that I feel like are surely going to happen this year. I think there's a time frame. I won't go into that because I'm not about giving kind of predictions, but there's a kind of a window where I think a lot of races, are kind of 50-50. But then there's the latter part of the year where I have a lot of faith that these races will take place. And I was just kind of picturing like what I hope is the environment at these races, that there's a lot more gratitude, there's a lot more appreciation, and if people are like, it'll be more like a celebration, like a parade of man, how thankful are we, how grateful are we, and just how much we should appreciate all these things that for the most part we've frankly just been ignoring, and taken for granted or advantage of, in terms of the abilities that we have, the freedom that we have, the things we have access to, the luxuries that we have for most of us in this country and elsewhere that are listening. And I really hope that it's kind of a turning point for a lot of people in terms of just how, even just like small things. Like, I mean, I'm terrible at this. I mean, you and I joke about it when we turn our Skype on to do a podcast and like one of our faces pops up. We're like, oh, we're like, well, no, let's start over again. We don't need to be seeing any of that. And yet we've all had these access to like FaceTime and Zoom and all these things that allow video chats, and we see these people, but we're always like, at least for me, I think a lot of people are like this too. Like, we're just much more comfortable, shooting a text or doing this. And now, even though we still have that access and we still wouldn't under normal circumstances see these people because they live in different states or things, it's like how much more effort people are putting in to get that connection. Like, once it's been somewhat taken away from you, it's funny how we like prioritize things differently to make things to make more of an effort to connect and get on video. And I think hopefully it will, that kind of shift change, mental and emotional shift change might continue on in terms of people wanting to connect more and just appreciate things more. So I think, again, trying to be half glass full here. We're definitely not a negative podcast, but, hopefully we can see a lot of positives coming out of this.
I couldn't agree more. I think we've talked about it. Maybe it's just me that talked about it, but in a lot of ways over the last several years, I've kind of just felt like, in general, things have kind of been snowballing and felt like it was just sort of going a little bit out of control. And I kind of look at this and, hopefully it's just a little reset or something. And to your point about people, taking things for granted a little bit, maybe slowing down in their blind sort of pursuit of whatever it is in this life, and appreciating the little things, like my mom's been here, and it's just been really nice to kind of connect with her without like excuses to do other things or go places. You just kind of have to settle into what you're doing. And I was thinking about like even the littlest things, like how when you're just sitting there talking with somebody, and how that feeling you get, when someone across from you you're talking to just sort of looks at their phone.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a weird little feeling, right? It's just sort of kind of like a, wow, that was a minor diss or something. Like, not that,
You can
not that
you can say it's rude because it is. Like
it's
you're
but we
it
all
is
do
rude.
it,
You can
and
say
I
that.
think that,
I mean,
yeah, I think we all do it. And I think that's part of what I'm talking about. Is sort of like this, really, do we need to get to Facebook that quick, or Twitter to post something that quick? And I think that's one of the things I think about during this stuff, is that, as much as I kind of, talk down about the media and kind of warn about the desire to sort of just put out the next big piece of information, regardless of
mm-hmm.
what it may do or whatever. I think that people in general with the social media, and I mean, that's a media connection in a way. I think people sort of do that too. It's like, oh, I just heard from my brother-in-law that this and this and this. And it's like, we're just putting out stuff and not really kind of contemplating the consequences of how
Mm-hmm.
people may see that. So these are things that, to me, the biggest, um, you know, that's one of the biggest fears that I have about this thing, is that, the precedents we set for each other, like,
Right.
is this sort of like, oh, okay, so now every time something comes up, we're going to quarantine and do this and what have you. And I know that, I don't know shit about what's going on, so I can't speak to really you know, the virus and really how things are spreading or whatever it is. But it just freaks me out a little bit, because now it's sort of like, you know, storms and hurricanes might not have been as big a deal until they started getting named. And now everything's getting named, and it seems a little bit scarier, and like all that kind of stuff. That's what crosses my mind. And then, are we going to always react with like a lockdowns and things like that? If like, it's just,
I think people forget. I mean, and because I mean, people forget, and I think it's a good quality and a bad quality, in terms of like how many things people, like I saw someone's like our generation, my generation, we've seen, Hurricane Katrina, we've seen September 11th, you've seen this, and you don't even like remember that those other things happen on like a day-to-day basis. Like they're huge, massive events. But I think people forget, and they move on. That's just how people are. I mean, I think we go on with their lives, and I just hope that people can have find some kind of a positive experience in this and take the wins, because I think there are plenty of opportunities for wins out there. That was kind of the direction I wanted to head in today, especially as a coach. Like, this is there is no playbook for right now. There is like I have never in my coaching career been in a situation where so many things are in flux. And you're like, I mean, what was it like? It was like 7 or 8 podcasts ago when I was like, yeah, here we go, like jumping into race season, ready to fly off, calendars packed, ready to travel for races. And now I legit don't see any races happening like for athletes, like, in here in the near future. And it's just kind of like, wait a minute, you're like transported back to, you're like on the cusp of ramping up and starting race season, and then now you're like rewinded all the way back to like October, November, December with like some of the ways you want to go about training, and then you have races that have been indefinitely, canceled or postponed and then shifted. But then you have other races that you need to click on, like, the race website. And it's like postponed. Dot 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 dot, and you're like, wait a minute, am I going to get like some information here? Like, when can I expect this event to happen? Is it going to happen? And if it is, when is it going to happen? Because I have other races that are going on. Like, what do I need to do right now? And it's like this. It's just a really weird, like, no man's land is what I like to call it for a lot of athletes, in terms of like, you went from hey, like, I'll use Ironman Texas for an example, then I want to go into a specific example of this athlete that had a marathon coming up. But you have these like athletes that are doing Ironman Texas, and it was a big team race for us. We had like 30 people doing it, and they're like, oh, start my final bid. Here we go. Like, I can do this. I can dial it in. I can do this. I'm pumped up. The end is in sight. I've been focusing on this for 4 or 5 months, and now here it is. I'm ready to go. We're doing 4.5, 5 hour rides. What? Now what am I doing?
Yeah.
Why is it again that I'm working out? It's like I had this race, and like all I'm thinking is Texas, and I'm maybe watching YouTube videos to get me pumped up and motivated, and I'm just dialed in and I'm energetic, and then it's like it's gone. It's taken from you. Like, it's like you've been given a brand new car and you finally got it, and you're driving around, the next morning you wake up and it's not even in your driveway.
Right.
You don't have any idea who stole it. You don't know where it is. You don't know where you're going to get it back. It's just gone. And you had to figure out, like, what the heck is going on right now? Because for some athletes, like, it's hard enough to get motivation. I think for a lot of athletes, and the really hard thing is to keep it for long periods of time. But then what happens is a shift in motivation. Like you said, that's why I see so many athletes struggle in November, December, January, February, is because there's this giant shift in the requirement that is motivation, commitment, time management, and just getting the work done, because you have all these races that are your, at the top of your mind, that are what you want to focus on, and then they're gone. And the next ones are so far away, and so you've had this like roller coaster of motivation, that you have this race, and now it's like, okay, now I'm waking up to work out, but I don't even know when I'm going to have a race again. But I think there are ways we can, I don't want to say manipulate your motivation, but I think there are ways that we can create healthy, low-hanging fruit, if you will. Not like go out and bury yourself for it, but I think there's opportunities to find wins. They don't have to be physical wins, like in terms of going out and trying to run an open half marathon on your own, or running, doing bike test to see where you're at. Like, those are fitness wins. But I think in the course of these next few weeks and months, where we find ourselves is we have a unique opportunity to address some of the more mental and emotional obstacles and hurdles that we often struggle with. Like, an example I'll use, and we have, again, if it's your first time listening or you've listened before, we have a closed Facebook group. It's called Crushing Iron Group. You can weigh in on that, and or click on search it on Facebook. We'll let you in there. But there's a frequent member in there. He goes by Ernie. I think it's Cruzada is his last name. His name's Ernesto. But he reached out to me, God, like 15, 16 weeks ago. I think he's been he's very active in the group, and posts about his successes and his worries and his apprehensions. And he reached out to me maybe 15, 16 weeks ago, after a marathon that didn't go the way he wanted. And he was like, hey, I've got another marathon in mid-March, and I really, really, really want to qualify for Boston. Like, and I think like qualification standards are hard enough as it is, because your triathlon, it's more about how you place overall within your age group versus just a flat out time. And so I think there are obviously advantages and disadvantages to both. But he was like, do you think we can do that in 16 weeks? And I was like, of course, I have no idea. Which is like the answer I give most people. Like, I really have no idea if we can do this or not. Because you just don't know. You don't know how a person's body is going to react. You don't know if they'll be able to stay healthy. You don't know how they're going to handle the load. And then especially as you transition from a person like Ernesto, who was doing everything was by mileage, everything was by a set pace, which is like the most common thing for people who have a qualifying standard. Is they say my qualifying standard to run this or the pace for this event is to average 17-minute miles for the whole thing. So now every time I go out for these long runs, I have to focus on running that exact pace. I've got to run some 15s. I got to run some 15s. I got to run lower than some 15s. If I don't do that, how am I ever going to run some 15s in a race? So you're battling this shift. And so he reached out to me. We started working together, and we had just finished his build. He had done like an incredible. He had handled one, two, three consecutive. His last build, he had handled three consecutive 50+ mile weeks. Just very committed, didn't miss workouts, very smart, held up well. We did everything by effort and duration. And so he gets done with doing like the three biggest run weeks of his life. And then he goes into taper, and then I don't know, 8 days away, they're like, hey man, the race is canceled. And you're like, wait a minute, you're not even like in the build phase or like the peak, you're like tapering, the work is done, and now you're going to be like fresh in the best shape of your entire life, and you have nothing to show for it. And I think that is in lies the opportunity. And there we had conversations, and I have conversations like this with so many athletes, over the course of the year via email, text, phone, whatever, is I just don't know that I can do this. And I want to. I think when people want to qualify for USAT Nationals or want to qualify for this or want to meet a time standard, a lot of it is, yes, is it important for them to run the race? Sure. Is it? I mean, people say this about qualifying for Kona, that it was the qualification itself, that process was, they used like Kona as more of like a celebration. Like, I did it, I'm here, I can make it, I belong. And I think we all have this like underlying sense of, I just want to belong. I just want to go to bed and lay my head on my pillow at night and think, you know what, you can do this. Whatever it is, whether it's running a sub 2 hour half marathon, whether it's running your first 5 hour marathon, whether it's, breaking 6 hours, this sort of thing. We all have these like mental I think thresholds that are kind of like our next level. See, you do belong, or see, you can do. So I think we give those to ourselves. And so in the midst of this, in the midst of everything taken away, he kind of reached out and he's like, "Hey, I think I'm just gonna find another one." He basically said, "Hey, you see, I've appreciated, all your help, but we'll just have to see where things go." And I said, "I think you should run it anyway." Because during this process, he had always said, like, I don't see how I can do this. I don't know that I can do this. The numbers aren't adding up for me. I just don't know if I can't hold this in training. How am I holding? I just don't believe I can do this. I just don't feel it. And it wasn't I don't believe. It was just that apprehension we all have along what is, a very long journey. That is, we have these doubts. And for most athletes, that's like the biggest thing to overcome. So we just texted a few times, email, and I was like, I think you should still run, even though knowing, like, if you run a marathon itself, it is, in my opinion, it is the hardest thing. It is the hardest endurance event to race, because it is long, but you have to go fast. And I think it's incredibly hard to pace. I think it's incredibly hard to run well. And so you're like, hey, I understand, like, you're not going to be able to do the race, but I say you go out and you do it. You find a course and you do it. He's like, all right, man, I think I can do this. And then Tuesday of this past week, he, as many of us, I think, like, as things started to kind of really pick up here in the U.S. and this kind of the severity and the overwhelming nature of the situation that some of us find ourselves in, he was just like, I got to admit, man, I'm losing my motivation. This has kind of hit home. My brother's a doctor. He's seen what's going on. Like, I just don't have it. And then he kind of went silent for like 3 days. I checked in on his training. He was still doing his workouts, like, to taper. And then the day before, I just said, hope you go out and you have fun. He posted a link in our closed Facebook group, and then he goes out yesterday and he runs a marathon by himself. By himself, like, races it, which I think is just like, no thank you, for first of all, like,
Yeah, no
I'm
kidding,
not
man.
like, no thank you. But I think, and we'll have to maybe ask him in the closed Facebook group. Maybe he'll just come out and kind of say it. But um, he sent me like a Garmin tracker, and I started tracking him all day. And he sent me a text. He set up his own bottles along the route and went out and ran a marathon. And he set a PR, and he missed his BQ, which obviously even if he hadn't have made it, it wouldn't have mattered because you can't just say, hey, I went out and ran this, give him my BQ. He texted me and said, dude, I missed my goal by by 22 seconds was it.
I'm proud of
Um,
you taking care of that, man.
dude, for sure. And I said, you know what, man? I said, you did that solo. In my opinion, you're totally a BQ guy. You just needed a race. And he said, next time I'll get it. And I said, man, I hope you're really proud of yourself. And he said, yep, I'm 22 seconds away. I'm happy because I had zero help. I hit some bottles halfway to get them when I get there, and I worked it out perfect. Um, and the last thing I kind of left him with was, if it said it wasn't a race, but that's the thing, is you can go to bed tonight knowing you are that awesome version of yourself. And that's better than any medal you could ever get. And I think the lesson in there that he provided, that he went out and did this was that in every aspect of life, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, relationships, whatever it is, there are things that are going to be what I would consider taken from us. Opportunities, periods of time, races, training sessions. And for a lot of us, we find with the immediacy or the surprise nature of so many of that is like, all right, well, it just wasn't meant to be. I guess I'm not going to do it. And I guess I understand this is a whole different scenario, but I think eh, within our effort and within the things we're really trying to figure out about ourselves, and we're trying to convince ourselves or believe in ourselves, or change the way that we think of how we train and who we are and the fitness we can create, is still, there are still opportunities out there to go out and not just change, like, and I'm speaking to speak for him, I guess, but you wake up today and you're a totally different person. You didn't have a race, you didn't have people cheering, you don't get to go online and race for Boston, but the feelings that we can have from opportunities, that we wake up the next day and just showing up and putting out the effort and just seeing what happens is, I think it's incredible. And I think that throughout the next few weeks where people are going to have a struggle finding motivation, or how, is this really worth it? Therein lies something that we have harped on since we started doing this podcast, was that the races are great, right? That we all have fun at races. We get medals, we get jackets, we drop 600 and change the next morning after you do an Ironman. But the journey along the way and the lessons that you learn and the things that you prove to yourself, either that you prove that you are or that you prove to yourself that you are not, those are the things that stick with you for life, not for just a race, but for life. And they can be transcending if you just allow yourself opportunities to get out. And I'm not saying, I'm not advocating going out and running a marathon. That's not what I'm trying to advocate
Oh, I
here.
thought that's what you were
Yeah,
saying.
that's right. Yeah, me. I'm like, hey, I'm the big like 26-mile guy, in prep for your Ironman training. I'm just saying the example of testing your metal, not metal as in the one you wear around your neck, but like what you got inside and what you can learn about yourself. And I think right now is like this. This is it. This is a chance to dig deep and learn about that.
I agree, man. We always talk about this. When I was growing up, I feel like there's this concept, right, that you hear about with quote unquote successful people in life, and they don't look at things as good or bad necessarily, but when something quote unquote looks bad
Hmm.
on the surface, the reason they are successful usually is because they find an opportunity in that. And it's exactly what he did out there with this marathon, and kudos to him for doing that because that, like you said, it's running a marathon is ridiculous in its own right, but doing it on your own and planting bottles and doing that whole thing, like if he missed by 20 seconds, I feel like he would have cut that 5 minutes off that time on a real course. I mean, I'm a huge believer in crowd energy and race energy and things like that. I think you can just, I mean, I notice it all the time when I'm just out running. If I run by a group of people and then I'll look at my watch and I'll be like a minute faster in pace,
Right.
just naturally because it's sort of this, you want to, look good and you start thinking about standing up and running with better form and things like that. And I think that those happen throughout races. I mean, certainly an Ironman for me, like towards the end of things, I find myself kind of, and I think that's a big part of it is like, okay, think about form here and make sure things are going right. We're not drift off and you're isolated out on mile 18 by yourself and there's no one around and nobody really even knows you're doing it. That's a huge accomplishment. As we were talking about like the idea of a race getting ripped away from you, I was just thinking like, it's in the ebbs and flows of training. It's almost to me like it must feel like, especially for Ironman Texas or somebody that's training for Ironman or a marathon or big thing like that, it almost must feel like the time period right after a race, but without the high, like as in motivational in the
Mm-hmm.
sense where you're like back to square one. Now what do I do? I mean, I'm here, but I just sort of did it. I did my big workouts. I've done a lot of hard work, and the race just didn't happen. It's almost like, yeah, I mean, if we want to use our graduation analogy, it's like everybody go home, the kids are going through it. You did
Right.
all the work, but you don't get to walk on stage with your gown and all that kind of stuff. So, what must that feel like? And I was thinking about kind of like what could be sort of sleeper ways for motivation. Over the weekend, I happened to catch the replay of the Olympic marathon trials,
Mm-hmm.
and wow, that was super cool for one. And then they were talking towards the end. Obviously, they were talking about Molly Seidel and how she just came out of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody. I mean, there was like a little buzz about her. I think that they knew of her as a runner, but she had never run a marathon before, and the commentators were kind of talking about how does this happen? Because what's a guy's name that won it? What's his name?
Oh man, I can't even remember.
But he did the same thing, I think. I think it was his first marathon a few years ago. But I think he came from a different, and he had, I don't know. But the point being is that they were explaining how how that can happen in a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Because, other shorter races, people are racing a lot and you're out there a little bit more and stuff like that. But a lot of times for a marathon, there's really no indication of how your training is going because you're not doing a lot of races and you're kind of in isolation and they're not seeing you all the time. So I got to thinking, well, this would be one of those interesting times where, I don't know what's going on here, how long we're going to be in lockdown or any of this kind of stuff. But, if it's 2 months, wow, what an opportunity for somebody to really kind of stick their nose in it, stay consistent, be strong, and then maybe, sort of come out of nowhere a little bit. And I suppose that would happen with Ironman too, because it's one of those things where it's such a long training cycle and you may do a few short races here and there, but I could see how somebody could just rise from the ashes, so to speak, and just kind of have like a really surprising race. If you're training well, I mean, you got your coach and you know what's going on, and you're doing the right stuff. But I just find that an interesting thing, and it's sort of changing your perception of like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to get rid of a lot of distractions maybe and just start to put my, nose into the grind and do the things that I wanted to do, the little things like, the core work and just, stuff that maybe gets neglected a lot.
Listen, it's never a bad time to kind of go back to basics.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things people struggle with is that when you've dangled that cherry out that's been so close for so many people that they want something, they want and need and feel that they have to have something to show for their work.
Hmm.
That the time they've spent, the energy they put out, the fitness they have, they need, whether it's proof, whether it's a medal, whether it's a Facebook post, like they have to show. And I don't think this is necessarily bad at all. I think it's common. I think it should be expected, especially for newer athletes to say like I needed to show it. I really needed this. And I think like in that question or in that statement is like, well, what exactly did you need? And the most important question is, and who did you need it from? Because there's nothing that we can't do on a day-to-day basis that we should need any validation from or any proof outside of ourselves. And so whether it's, I have to do this race, so I think that's like, what am I going to get in return? Is it a race? Is it, like I said, is it a medal? Is it, a plaque? Whatever it is, like the more we have these external rewards, and it's very common, I think, for athletes, and we, especially for kids, like, you're going to get a medal, you're going to get a treat, you're going to get a prize. And I think for athletes, a lot of triathletes and endurance athletes especially, like you've been wired to think that way, is, well, there's a treat just on the other side. If you do this, then there's a treat. And then if there's no longer a treat, then where does your motivation come from? Where is the need? Where is your, not necessarily your why, but where does your drive come from? Is it a drive to just get better? Is that you just want to figure out and be a part of a process that at some point will allow you to show how much better you've gotten on the stage that is a race? But each day you wake up, each day you put on your shoes, each day you hop on your bike, each day you get in the pool, each day you choose to get out your workout in, like those are the days where you get to show just on a day-to-day basis. Because I think that, again, like when you go back to people saying that they get more out of the journey, it's because you do it every day. The journey is a day. The journey is, or not, it's not day, but the journey is something you're a part of, that you're committed to, that are in that story. That is a day-to-day thing. It's day to day. It's multiple days. It's weeks. It's months. It's sometimes a year or years. And then you have this day and it's like, oh, this is great. But then you look back and you're like, all right, would you trade the day? Would you trade the journey? Oh, I'm not giving up my journey. No way. Like, there, like no way, shape, or form. I would take the journey no matter what, because you learn so many things and you prove to yourself and you have these wins and you have, I think, which is also important, like you have these losses that are so, that the learning experiences you can have, the ability to, you know what, yesterday sucked. Yesterday, like I had the worst run ever. Yesterday, I had this experience this past week for myself. I went out last Thursday and had, like, literally, I had the run where I stopped after 30 minutes, turned off my watch, and turned it back on. I was like, there ain't no damn way I'm running this right now. I mean, I was like barely breathing in the, like, I think, this may be just me, or I'm sure it's not, but like with everything going on, you're thinking, God, I can barely breathe right now. My pace is just abysmal. What is going on? Am I like coming down with something? Like, what is the deal? And I was like, you know what? I just need a reset. And started back, and, and then I started running a little bit and looked back down. I was like, nope, nope, nope. This is just as bad a day as I thought it was. It's like you go on a long ride and you're like, man, I am struggling today. It's got to be my rear tire. I've get my brakes got to be rubbing. My PSI is probably down at 35. This is embarrassing. You pull over, and it's like, your brakes are wide open. Your PSI is 105, and you're like, yep, yep, no, just don't have the legs today. And then I got up and ran Friday when I did a long run Saturday, and then yesterday woke up and had without question, my best run of the year. Like, it wasn't even close. Where I felt super efficient, my aerobic capacity, it was one of those runs where like it shined through as what you're doing's working, so just keep at it. But in that small lesson is the fact that in just the span of a week, you can have what I felt was the worst run of my year and the best. But
Yeah,
I
that's
wouldn't
pretty
have
nuts.
found the best. And that's super common. Like I usually tell athletes this. I think this terrible run was just a combination of life stress. It was super hot that day, and if you I don't know if you live in this if you live in the South, you know that right now, like we had rain and then we had like 2 days of sunshine, and it was like I got the first like pollen dusting on my truck, which was like, all right, here we go. It's gonna be hard to breathe. The air quality is not gonna be that great. So that wasn't a contributing factor. But nonetheless, most people have a really crappy workout before they have a breakout. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but so many people have it, and I just think it's not just about getting up, right? It's not like, oh, you had a really bad day and you got up and fall down 4 times, get up five. It's not that. It's just that if you just keep going and you keep participating in the process, in this journey, in your triathlon training, you're going to continue to see wins, not just miniature wins. And yes, you're going to have losses. You're going to have bad races. You're going to have bad workouts. It's going to make you question why you're even doing this. And then if you stop, you're always going to believe that's the case. If you take a week off because like I just cut down on what I'm doing, you're going to lose it. But if you just keep going, the wins always outweigh the losses, and it's the wins that shine. Like you're going to forget the bad ones, and it's the wins that add up. And I think what do you need? Is your race is postponed? I don't have a race right now until hopefully August. I was about a week away from my own. I was like, yeah, but you know what? I still enjoy kind of figuring out, and frankly, I just want to get in better shape. Like that shouldn't be, especially now. Like I find this kind of fascinating. Is like right now, like there is no better time to continue to get in better shape. Like it's going to do more for you now than it probably ever has. Like just be a part of that, and find, I think, comfort in that, that even Steven approach that we always advocate for, that don't get too high, Don't get too low. Just take it for what it actually is. And it's just this. It's just that. It's just today. It's nothing more. It's nothing less. It's just is what it is. So do it, move on, see what happens next. And I think that that simple approach is freeing in a way because it removes so many expectations and the need for so many external rewards or external accomplishments or expectations to happen that are going to validate why we do what we do and the time we take to do it.
Mm. Yeah, I love that your best and your worst workout happen within the same week. It does seem like that happens. From the theory or thought I've always had on that, or maybe I heard it somewhere probably, is that when when you're going to have a breakthrough is when things feel the toughest. And if you can stick with it and fight through, and I think that has proven to me over and over and over again, because it's so easy. It's almost like a test, a temptation to quit or to kind of throw the towel in a little bit, because it's like, man, this is not going anywhere. I'm not getting, like this is, how can I be having my worst run when I've been doing all this stuff and it's building up to this? Well, it's like, it's the breakthrough. It's like, it's like that diagram that we always see where the guy's chipping away into tunnel and he's like 2 feet away and his arms are tired. You know what I mean? But the gold or whatever is on just like 2 feet away. That on that cartoon.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. That's sort of how I look at it. So it is really nice to hear that as a reminder that you can go out and just really have a bad day, and then a few days later you might have your best day. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that there's that reason. It's because you're working up and you're in your whatever's going on in the body and the mind and all that sort of stuff. As you get, it just gets tough because you don't like breaking through to new levels, learning. I mean, I think this happens with learning too. You get super confused and then all of a sudden you just have a breakthrough and you get it. But it's so easy to just kind of walk away. And I think most people do that. And I think that's the challenge between, again, being successful in your life and always kind of searching, is that you gotta plow through it.
Well, if you're always searching, you're always going to find something. And
Right.
the best part about that is you're usually you're going to find something along the way that you weren't even looking for that ends up being significantly better or more important or more enlightening than the one you originally sought out to accomplish, which is the race. Most people sign up for a race. I want to prove to myself that I can do this distance, or I want to be an Ironman, or I want to do my first marathon, or I want to run a marathon on my first 10K and do an Olympic. That's what I want to do. And then that's the kickstart. That's the match that starts the fire. And then the next thing you know, weeks, days, weeks, months later, years later, you think, dude, I am so into this. Not because, yeah, the races are great and I love to compete and I love to push myself, but dude, the things that I've learned about myself, like those are priceless. And guess what? No one can take that from you. They don't place you in your age group, or you don't hop on the podium and you don't get to set PRs by the transformation you had from the person you are from a health standpoint, a fitness standpoint, how you are as a father, as a wife, as a worker, as just a person. Like the characteristics that you get from participating in endurance events, like you can't, for a lot of people, you can't quantify it. Like there is
Right.
no, it's not like it's priceless, but it's something you can't quantify in your Athlinks resume that you want to show off, or your Facebook, profile that says how many Ironman you've done and what your PRs are. Like that stuff is trivial compared to the stuff that all of this allows you to do and become. And by not participating in it, or relying strictly and only by external factors, that if I don't have a workout that's perfect, it's a failure, that if I'm not meeting these expectations, then I'm not heading in the right direction. If you're just going in a direction right now, or for the most part, if most of the weeks of the year, you're going forward and you're going to learn something. And it's applying those lessons. It's taking what you learn. It's being aware and mindful enough to understand what's going on in life and respecting that, to understand like what did you expect more, and who cares? You went out and you did it and you learned something, and guess what? You woke up the next day and you did it again. It's about learning the good lessons through things that are positive and sometimes things that are hard. And the more you do that, the more you're like, you always want like people would take like the wise old man who's gone through and with the calloused hands, who's been through everything, who's seen it all, who can fix your problems with like 2 words that you've been like trying to figure out for 6 years. You'd pick that guy over a guy who's like had one substantial, like, very superficial, earth-shattering public success. Like I'll take the wise guy any day
Yeah.
of the week, because they just gone through it. They call him weathered. It's like he looks old and weathered. I bet you he knows a ton of shit. You want that guy as like in your back pocket that knows stuff that can, again, like you can go on a 5-minute walk and he can solve all your problems with like 6 words. And I think that's what training can do for us right now, or all the time, not just right now, but all the time, is it can help us solve those problems. It can help us figure out things. It can help us work through. It's been amazing how many people I've seen out running and walking the last few days, the last week. And we discussed this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I thought that, in my opinion, running and even swimming to an extent is like people's ability to sleep while moving. Because sleep is when we get to work through things. We get to, go through our thoughts and fix, not fix things, but deal with it. And that is what running is. Like, I've had a lot of athletes kind of ask for the green light the last week or two. It's been like, hey, I, just bear with me. I just need I just need to run more. I need to get out. I need to clear my head. I've got a lot of stress, and I need a management by running, by getting out and working through those things, working out through movement, not working it out by sitting still and doing nothing. And that's what I think other people are figuring out now, is that you've seen so many people getting out and doing things. They're thinking, oh, maybe I can have like a net gigantic positive by just getting out and getting vitamin D in the sunshine, taking care of my body, positive, getting exercise and being fit and staying fit, positive, working through the mental emotional stress I have in a healthy way, positive, coming back feeling better and with a better approach and better view, positive. Okay, zero negatives. And I think people are figuring that out, and I think running is going to take off. But back to our original topic, was like that's where the wins are. It's just getting up and doing it and figuring out that there are little opportunities to find wins. And to be honest, like most of us need it right now. You need running, you need cycling, you need to get out, you need to do things, you need to go for walks, and you need to. And I think right now is like a great example of what we're trying to get at, which is that every day and every opportunity, every session is time that shouldn't go to waste, that you really don't. I think right now it's proving to us that we don't need a race. You don't need a date on the calendar. You just need an opportunity every day that's 25 minutes, 45 minutes, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it is. You just need a time slot and an opportunity to wake up, get out, and be a better version of yourself. And that's what training does for you. And I think right now is a perfect time to just aggressively get after that.
I've often thought that really the meaning of life is learning,
Hmm.
and and it's like you're saying, man, you can learn so much about. I have a great analogy. I mean, my mom has been here all week, right? And she came down to help me turn my bachelor pad into a home that people feel comfortable in.
You want to talk
And
about impossible things to take on, and that is
okay,
one.
you talk about that wise man. This is the
Hmm.
wise woman, right? She is like, she grew up in a home full of carpenters, and she has like, my place looks amazing right now compared to what it looked like, for sure. And that to me is sort of the end result. But what happened along the way is how many things she taught me is unbelievable. Like from, just, hey, move this over here, move this bed over about 3 feet, do this, put this here. This is how you putty little holes. This is how you get stains out of carpet. This is how you should paint stuff with spray paint. She introduced me to chalk paint, little things in the garden, all kinds of, like, it just is, it's endless, right? And to me, that's what I'm taking away, is like this thing I've never really understood. And I would look at my house. I can't tell you how many times I walked around my house going, I know there's something here, but I have no idea how to do it. And she just came in and sort of like started shifting things, and she's changed my whole paradigm about interiors of homes. And it was like, I don't know why I never picked that up living at home and that sort of thing, but it just took something, and it took this experience for this last week to go through. But I just feel infinitely more confident in, I guess, just creating life in a weird way. I mean, like she has brought so much life to this house, and I've learned so much from her. So I think that's what we need to do, right? Is like, how do we learn right now, and what can we learn about ourselves, and that value is just it's irreplaceable. It's like to have knowledge and wisdom and things like that. The wise man that you're talking about, it's like that's who we want to be, right? We want to understand. And so when we face certain situations, because like what's the worst thing, right? It's like the biggest cause of anxiety is kind of is unknown, is if you don't know how to do something. Hey coach, I need you to go do this, or can you do this for me? And you have no idea how to do it. That's a stressor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the project may be or whatever. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps you up at night and what have you. But like she had to leave, and we have to I feel like I can handle it now, you know what I mean? It felt like an overwhelming project, but that's I'm sure what happens with you and your coaching relationships is like, my God, I have no idea how to train for this race or whatever. And then you come in and you give them little things here and there, and that gives them confidence to build on that, and they understand things. And when you understand what's going on at a core level, especially in racing, it takes that mystery away, and it gives you purpose, and it takes away that fear element that I think is such a big piece in racing, is the ability to understand what your body and understand your mind and understand what you're doing, have a good plan, and that's what helps you race better. I really think that that's like one of the biggest issues with people who have bad races who train well, or that kind of thing, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how can we really understand and take that pressure off of that one day and just be able to go out and be yourself.
Well, if you never have a bad workout and if you never have a bad race, and you're not doing it enough, and
Hmm.
therefore you're not going to be your best. Like, experience, or the lessons that we learn in getting better comes from experience and exposure. And you have to get out and you have to do things. You have to do them repetitively to do them. And you also have to do sometimes the same things over and over and over again to get the most out of it. Like, I started thinking about this the other day. Hayden's like number one all-time favorite movie right now is Zootopia. And I've watched it probably 19,000 times. And like we'll lay down in bed and like our nap, he's like, all right, I want to watch Zootopia. I'm like, fine. And I think we all do this. Like when you watch movies for like the fourth and fifth time, you start to like not pay attention to what is usually like the main focal point of the scene, because you know what's going on, you know what the characters look like, you know what's going to be said. So you start to look at like the perimeter, co-stars, other people that are in the picture frame, and you're like, I never noticed like the detail that was in this part, or what this person was doing, or how they were acting. And it's like watching a different movie. And you do that by repetition. You do it by doing things over and over and over again. I think that's what training can do for us, is that the more you do it, the more you compete, the more you experience things, even if it's like they're remotely similar, you can learn something new every time if you're looking, if you're paying attention, if you're doing the right things. And so I think right now when we're all looking at what is, it's like Groundhog's Day, for like for a lot of us. It's kind of like Allie and I has been feeling. It's like you wake up, our kid's here. What day is it? Is it the weekend? You know what? Doesn't matter. We just got to do the same thing and figure it out. And we're in the house, and they're gonna stay in the house, and it's like there's not much variety. But what is it that we can learn from doing the same things over and over again to hopefully make them less stressful, or a more enjoyable the next time? Or are we just kind of going through the motions and have to have this? And so there's a learning experience in everything. I would hope that our podcasts over the last 3 years have gotten better. Like, I don't even want to listen to the first 50 we did, because I would cringe. Probably
They're
would
not
have quit.
bad.
Like, they're not that bad. Well, they seem
Pretty
like they
solid.
are. They're all right.
Like
But
our
it's
first record.
yeah, well,
Got a
very
certain
limited, very limited
appeal.
edition. But hey, like, I guess to close it down, it's like, right now it's you got to find the wins, because if you're looking for a race to be your win, and you're looking for a race to validate things, or to show you that your expectations have been met, that you are who you thought you were, like, you don't know. You have no control of that. But what you do have control of is waking up tomorrow, or getting on your bike later today, or going out for a run, or doing whatever you need to do to find that little win, and then think, all right, I won this today, or I learned this today. Because learning is always a win. Because well, that's not true. Learning is always a win if you choose to apply it later on and you don't just ignore it or don't learn from it. Always learn, always apply things. And if you can do that, then I promise you, at the end of this, whatever it is, you're going to come out a better athlete. Like I did a long run with our athletes on Saturday, and I said, I think that at Kona this year, it's going to be the deepest and most competitive field we've ever seen, because everyone's going to be training. No one's going to have out a lot of races. Everything's going to be just kind of doing their base building, gearing up for just this one day. And I think it's going to bring out the best in every athlete, all on the same day. Now they're going to have raced a few weeks before to see how it happens. I think people are going to be restricted into kind of saving it, and they're performing really well on one day. And so I think as amateurs and athletes who do this for a hobby, we have that same opportunity to just use this time to get better, use this time wisely, be efficient with it, do your best, wake up the next day, do it again. And then at some point, you'll get to express that fitness, you get to show your work, and then have fun doing it. And then wake up the next day and get back to work again.
I like it, man. Yeah, that's interesting about Kona. I hadn't thought about that. I think you're right. I mean, it's just going to be a rested field, probably.
Exactly, dude.
You know, it'll be fun. But let's keep our heads up. Let's keep doing what we're doing, and I mean, there's nothing really else we can do. So,
nope.
Take it day by day. Take it minute by minute. Walk. Do a lot of walking. I don't know. I can't talk about it anymore.
Yeah, let's just move it on. Hey, we appreciate you tuning in. We won't go down that rabbit hole. Hey, if you haven't been on by, stop by our website, c26triathlon.com. It's got all things coaching, camps, and community. If you want to pop in our closed Facebook group, pop in there. It's Crushing Iron group on Facebook. If you got any questions, you can hit up Mike at crushingiron@gmail.com. Or if you have any questions for me, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, and also remember, we've opened up the online hub for a pay what you want situation. You can either pay $9, $29, or $49 for 6 months of what we've got going on in the hub, which is a ton of videos about swim, bike, and run coaches put together about how to help you with a lot of stuff. It's really, really good, kind of short, to the point, informational stuff. We've got athlete profiles. We've got what else? We got video interviews. We've got
videos,
blogs,
Q&As, videos.
Q&As,
I mean, it's loaded.
It's loaded, and it's going to keep getting more loaded. We've got a ton of athlete profiles I'm working on just to kind of get us. I've asked our athletes some, life questions and training questions and things like that, and I think there's a lot of really good answers in there, and they've taken their time and really put together solid responses, and we can always learn from each other. So there you go. That's the learning piece again, and we're going to start doing some bonus podcasts at some point, and we have really a lot of things we're planning to do in there. So that is open to the public now. If you want to go in there, the link is all over our C26 Triathlon website. There's plenty of opportunities to click through and find out more about what's on there, and come on in if you want. So
happy to have you.
Happy to have you.
All right, dude. We'll catch you again and do it again Thursday.
Got it, man.
Sounds good.